Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Good morning, Scotty T.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. We finally saw a little bit of the old Elden Ring last night. It feels like it's been a lifetime coming, but eventually, none other than Jeff Keighley managed to snatch a hold of it and go, here's the thing you wanted at the Summer Games Fest. So there's quite a lot of stuff to break down. There's a lot of information across the internet between From Software's own press release and also some fan-translated stuff, finding out different names of things like that whopping great tree that's in the middle of the map itself.
That's got a name.
I know. Well, I thought I'd start with some general thoughts, and then I'll break down the things that I've found having a bit of the old scour. So what was your thoughts watching the Elden Ring's gameplay?
Well, Scott, I feel like alongside so many other people, I've built this thing up in our collective heads, and to be honest, it was exactly what I wanted it to be. It very much looks like a From Software game, and I mean that in a good way. It felt, like the spiritual successor to Dark Souls in particular. Obviously, all of From Software games have shared DNA, but from a pure aesthetic perspective, it felt very much in line and an evolution on what Dark Souls and Dark Souls 3 especially kind of like brought to the table, obviously on like this much bigger scale. But I was kind of like a bit shocked with how close the comparisons were. Like if you look at the walking animations, if you look at the brief snippets of combat that we got to see, it's very much in line with their past work. For me, that's a plus, because I don't want them to ever go too mainstream and just make like a generic open world game. So I appreciate what was there, and the entire blend of like this, doomed fantasy setting. I'm a sucker for that stuff, and I'll take it in any form, but especially from this developer.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think, because I've not looked into which engine From Software used, but I'm pretty sure they've been using the same engine for a long time. Like it still feels like another. It's obviously very like signature at this point. It is a From Software game. It's a From Software combat model, a traversal model, but they've been adding different things. Yeah, for me, it's like we said it when we reacted to the potato version of this trailer, which was kind of funny watching this proper one and going like, oh, this is actually the thing that leaked X many months ago.
But it was forgot about that.
Yeah, it was a really horrible, blurry version of it. But yeah, I think it looks incredibly promising. I'm definitely one of those complete a-holes online who's looking at the graphics and going, oh, it's not good enough. It's fine, it's solid, it's identifiable, but I did look at some of the textures and go, okay, we've waited a long time. It didn't blow me away on the graphical front. I think the art direction of it, giant tree, and going down the more archetypal fantasy thing of just like, big old fire-breathing dragons, ice blasts from the top of staffs, wizard hats, things like that. I'm there for it. I like the idea of how much From Software are branching out in terms of they're only getting bigger, so it's like, let's just do our biggest thing, and they're bolstered by George Martin, helping them craft the world. But at the same time, it's graphically, in terms of literal textures and literal character models, didn't necessarily blow me away.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like I said, it very much looks like a From Software game, and while all of their titles haven't been graphical slouches, they've not been, Naughty Dog, Rockstar at the forefront of, individual pixels or anything like that. But for me, all of their games have been backed up by just a rich art style, and from this trailer I got the sense that was there here. Like there were some shots with the dragon in the red sky, the blood red sky, that just like completely blew me away. I think you mentioned there, like the flashes of color that were in this, like the big primary colors, the big spells. It felt epic and it looked epic. So for me personally, I don't necessarily mind that the graphics in parts might have looked a little dated, because the art style was so strong that I can just completely roll with it. Because for me, weirdly enough, going back to playing Mass Effect 3, sorry for this tangent, has kind of, made me realize how much I prefer a strong art direction over just pure graphical powerhouses. It doesn't matter how many, what you've got technological-wise, it's what vision you're bringing to the game itself. And for me, from this trailer, the vision looks almighty testy. I was going to say mighty testy. It's not testy, it's tasty. That's what I was trying to say. Sorry for that Freudian slip.
It can be both, I think. But no, but in the words of, Austin Powers' dad, it's not the size, it's how you use it. And I think that, I'm absolutely all for the art direction side of it as well. I just think that was one thing that I sort of noticed where coming off Demon's Souls, as, obviously it's Blue Point, it's a remake, they've had more time to sit and, well, not only more time, but they've gussied it up in a way that Elden Ring isn't necessarily focusing on. But coming off that, I would love it if something like Demon's Souls bar or translated across to Elden Ring, that was the next, the main developer From Software, and it's Elden Ring, it's the new IP, but it also looks as gorgeous as Demon's Souls for the remake. But yeah, let's break some stuff down, because we mentioned the giant tree. Apparently that thing's called the Erd tree, and it brings all the life to the world, brings all the boys to the yard, because the main world is called the Lands Between. And so the world itself, we always knew that Hidetaka Miyazaki, obviously he's From Software's CEO, is working with George R.R. Martin of Game of Thrones fame, but it was always like, how are those two working together? And that's been clarified in the press release that came out for Elden Ring, which was Miyazaki saying that they based the world on legends that George Martin wrote for the game. So I think he must have just written stuff about certain lords, or maybe like etched out the lore in terms of what the Elden Ring is and the different fragments of the ring that have been scattered across the land. And then FromSoft went in, or Miyazaki went in, and stitched all those different parts together. In terms of other stuff though, your horse is called Rayma, and that's the one that it looks like you can summon that whenever you want. There's a bit in the trailer where it just comes out of nowhere. Reminded me a lot of Immortals Phoenix Rising for the three of us that played it.
Interesting.
That was really cool. They also show the horse bouncing off what looked like specific like jumping spots. There's a bit where the horse is in midair, but if you look at before it takes off, it's kicking off the ground on a specific little warp pad, which I would have to assume is, a way to get you around the world, but in very specific ways, maybe specific mountains that you can climb, things like that. One thing to clarify though, we can talk about this, is the gameplay itself. In the press release, it seems like it's always going to be like Dark Souls, channeling Bloodborne, but the press release says that your options in terms of approaching enemies are that you can charge into battle, you can pick off enemies one by one using stealth, or you can call upon allies for aid. And Games Radar have said that the game has 1 to 4 player co-op. So what do you think of them doing open world, I guess drop in, drop out style co-op, but also bringing across Sekiro style stealth?
Yes, I think that's neat. I think we got a brief flash of the co-op stuff in the trailer itself. Like, I've always played these games solo, and unless I'm incredibly stuck and need to call someone else to help with a boss. But I mean, the fact that co-op's always been part of FromSoft's DNA, to see that elaborated on, like, that could be really fun for people to get together, play throughout the entire game, together and stuff. I am interested, and it was actually what I was going to ask you, but now you've kind of already covered it, how much of the DNA of Sekiro that they're going to bring to this game. Because for me, I loved the evolutions that Sekiro brought to the combat model, like the extra agility, the focus on stealth, the jump button, and I'm interested to see how much of that is brought across, but to know that the stealth bit in particular is going to make an appearance. I think it's very easy to boil down the whole game to being an open world game that mixes stealth or all out action. How many times have we heard that set up in a press release before? But I think it is different when you have Sekiro stealth in particular, and a combat from Bloodborne and Dark Souls. Like, to me, that makes it fresh enough that I'm not rolling my eyes at all of these repeated buzzwords, if that makes sense. Because I think the combat models have always been so satisfying, and like I said, I love the added stealth elements and the added dexterity of your character that you had in Sekiro especially. So I want to see what those two worlds blended looks like.
Well, I'm curious, like, if they still do the one-hit kill type stuff from Sekiro, in terms of like, you get the timing right, you finish a dude off, you go to the next guy, you can just tear through certain environments once you get that mechanic down, and it's all based on when you hit L1 to block and parry and stuff like that. So I kind of wonder how much they flesh that out. What does it feel like in From Software's case to flesh out a stealth system? They're one of the only developers prioritizing stealth in terms of mentioning it on their press release up front anyway. But yeah, so they showed a lot of dungeon stuff, a lot of walking around with a torch, Dark Souls 2. Apparently that is because underneath the Lands Between is a massive interconnected series of dungeons that, according to IGN, all load seamlessly. So it seems like, or that made me think of the Chalice dungeons from Bloodborne, or maybe you can obviously channel Dark Souls itself, but I like the idea of them having this big old network of almost like a foundational body of Dark Souls, which you build other stuff on top of, all the fantastical stuff, the world tree and everything else is above, but you still have a Dark Souls style game underneath. One other thing to throw in is that FromSoft described like biome variety in their press release, said that across the whole game's map there'll be grassy plains, suffocating swamps, spiraling mountains, foreboding castles, and other sights of grandeur on a site never seen before in a From Software title. Also quickly thrown in, there is a day-night cycle with different weather systems, which I'm going to assume affects enemy behavior, otherwise what are we doing other than just cool rain, I guess, in there for specific fights, and that NPCs in the world can either help or hinder you, because they have, according to the press release, profound backgrounds. So I don't know why they're fighting, but what's all your thoughts on all this stuff?
I suppose that's kind of where George R. R. Martin comes in, writing all of this background lore. And I like that it is, if this press release is to be fully believed, I like that it seems like he's only written the background, but the actual storytelling has been left to FromSoft, because for me, a huge part of the appeal of their games, even Sekiro, which was way more narrative heavy and more accessible on that front, has been the fact that you're uncovering this place kind of at your own pace. You're encouraged to discuss it online, seek things out. Like, there's always been this rich world, but it's up to you to go as deep as you want for the most part. Now, I hope that is retained here, obviously with the richness of someone like George R. R. Martin and the ideas that he's bringing to the table. I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember what else you said, but I'm gonna move on to like the environmental stuff. I think you did mention that. Yeah, to me, like that's just exactly what I want to hear. That is music to my ear holes. The different biomes you already got a little taste of in the trailer itself. I want that interconnectedness to be throughout the whole world. I love Dark Souls 1 in particular because that world is so connected, and while I don't mind zipping around from level to level or whatever, it is the kind of intricacies of the environment and how lived in and quote unquote believable it feels. The fact that you are in this land and everything connects, you can move from one place to another in one seamless kind of adventure, I suppose. Like, that to me is awesome alongside the variety, and it's really what allows From Software games to stand apart. When you've played other games that are clearly inspired by FromSoft, which are also really good, like Nioh 2, for instance, I was obsessed with earlier this year. The big difference is in how they construct their levels, and for me, FromSoft always wins when it comes to the environment. So to see that take, center stage in this press release, like, that's what I want to hear. That's the thing I come to these games for, and what makes them so special and so just enjoyable to revisit over and over again. I hope they manage to nail that element.
Well, yeah, hopefully they should do. I mean, there's a slight tinge of Zelda in like showing like big old imposing mountain, like Mount Doom style thing. But I don't even think what the hell it's called in Zelda. Death Mountain. It's been a while since Breath of the Wild, but I think that they're sort of channeling, like I said, a lot of archetypal fantasy. They're channeling a lot of established game design tropes and like fantastical elements and things like that. It does feel like it's all coming together. To specifically quote the George Martin, the thing from Miyazaki in regards to him, he says, "The Elden Ring, we've crafted a rich world with a staggering sense of scale based off legends written for the game by George R. R. Martin." So it seems like he's not a direct consultant necessarily in terms of day-to-day, week-to-week type stuff, but he must have laid down the foundations of the lore itself, and I guess they've just kind of gone from there. But yeah, let us know what you think down in the comments below of everything that we saw last night from the Summer Games Fest. Are you excited for Elden Ring, or are you griping like a big old ninny hammer like me, looking at some of the textures and going, they could be a bit better? Let us know what you think. For now though, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.